Cooking for Health, a community cooking class brought to you by First Choice Community Healthcare, Agricultura Cooperative Network, La Cosecha, and other valued community partners. Welcome back to Cooking for Health. Welcome to the third video of our Power Plate theme, a cabbage, kale, and potato subji by Anita Adalja of Agricultura Network. Anita is a farmer and she is also the sales and production manager of La Cosecha at Agricultura Network.
Okay, so today I'm going to be cooking cabbage, kale, and potato subji. And this is an Indian dish, and subji just means vegetable. So this is a vegetable and rice dish. So you can see I have the kale, this is curly kale, green cabbage, yellow Yukon potatoes, and then I have a yellow onion. And you can sub out any of the potatoes if you have red potatoes or if you have brown potatoes, that's fine too. And then different varieties of cabbage, of course, there are purple cabbage, or Napa cabbage. And then for the greens, it could be collard greens, spinach. Today we're using the curly kale. So to start, I'm gonna get the rice cooking. So we're using a white basmati rice. It's a long grain rice. It could also be a brown rice, which will take a bit longer to cook. So let's see here. First I'm gonna do 1 cup of rice, to 2 cups of water. Sometimes when I'm cooking rice, I like to, if I have any leftover vegetable stock, I cook it in vegetable stock instead of water, but water is just fine too. So with the rice, I'm just going to let it come to a boil first, and then I'm going to simmer it. So it should take about 15 minutes. So while that's cooking, we can start on the subji. So I like to use, you can use any kind of oil, canola oil, olive oil. I like to use coconut oil for the fat to saute the vegetables. So about 2 tablespoons. And I know that might seem like a lot, but it's because we're going to be cooking a lot of vegetables in here. So with a lot of Indian cooking, we use mustard seeds. It gives a lot of the flavor. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a teaspoon of these mustard seeds in here. And you have to be really careful because as this heats up, the mustard seeds will start to pop. So just be really mindful of that so you don't get burned. I'm going to add a bit of crushed cumin. So these are cumin seeds right here, and I've just finely chopped them. You can also crush them if you have a mortar and pestle. So I'm just going to put about a teaspoon. Sprinkle that in here. So again, just mustard seeds and crushed cumin in with the coconut oil as it's all heating up. And that's going to give you that flavor that's kind of quintessential to Indian cuisine. So while that's heating, lower that there, I'm going to chop up this yellow onion. So you can use a white onion, you can use a yellow onion. Purple onions are a bit more pungent, so for this dish I recommend either a white or a yellow to have that sweet onion flavor. Some people have very fancy onion techniques. I do not. But I do have one dicing technique that I like. So basically, cut it in half, like that. So I cut it in half, and then I cut it from the top. And because it's already cut in half now, when I slice it this way, it's already diced. So that's really helpful when you need fried onions. So this, you can see, is starting to heat up a bit. So here we have the onions ready. So this is one whole onion. So it's up to you if maybe you don't like too much onions, you could use half of the onion in this. And what's great about this dish is that you can kind of, once you've made it a few times, you can kind of cater it to what you feel like eating in terms of vegetables, in terms of how much of what thing. It's the spices that are really gonna help give it that flavor. Okay, so this, check in with this and see how it's going. So the rice has come to a boil, so I'm gonna lower that to a simmer. Make sure you turn it on. I'm gonna go ahead. It's starting to pop a little bit, but I don't want it to get too crazy here. So I'm gonna add the onions, and I'm gonna add about 3/4 of the onions that I cut up. So with the onions, we can allow these to kind of simmer in here for about 5 to 7 minutes. We want to get the onions to be translucent, kind of cooked down. So I have the heat at about medium so that it can continue cooking here and not get burned. If you have the heat too high, it'll burn really quickly. So just keep stirring that. So what I'm going to add next after this cooks down a bit is a bit of red pepper and then a little more cumin and turmeric. So as I have this cooking here, I'm going to go ahead and chop up the cabbage and the potatoes, because those are going to take the longest to cook. The tail's going to go in last because it doesn't take as long. So right here we have 5 potatoes. I would say about 3 to 5 potatoes for this dish. And I'm just going to cut them in small pieces. And I keep the skin on. It's up to you. With these potatoes, this particular variety, it's called a new potato, so it's not a storage potato. It's kind of which basically means that the skin is not as hard, so you can eat the flesh. And the flesh is going to be good for you as well. Or not the flesh, sorry, the skin. It's going to be good for you in terms of fiber too. So again, just cutting them up into small pieces. Some onions. They're starting to cook down here. I'm going to go ahead and add the spices here. So again, I'm going to add some chili, some red chili, and I'm going to put a teaspoon in here, but depending on, if you don't want too much spice, you might want to put less. So the onions are going to kind of soak up the spices here, which is great. And then the turmeric here, I'm going to put about the same amount. Stir that all in. I'm going to go ahead and add the potatoes. Potatoes are going to take the longest to cook, so they go in first. Kind of a big chunk there. So I'm going to just let the potatoes saute a bit in here while I cut the cabbage up. It's important to stir it pretty frequently so that it doesn't stick to the pan. I'm going to use about half of this cabbage. You can kind of see that if you're cooking this for a lot more people, you can adapt, right? You could have used the whole onion, you could have used all the potatoes, you could have used the whole cabbage. So it's a pretty flexible dish. So with the cabbage, you can either chop it really finely like I'm doing, or you could shred it. But it's important that it's in small pieces. Check on those potatoes again. I'm going to go ahead and add this cabbage. I don't have any big chunks in there. Okay. So now, this one I'm going to add a bit of water. And the water is going to allow the potatoes and the cabbage to cook a bit faster. And first stir it around, make sure it all gets coated in the spices. So I'm going to add about half a cup of water and kind of eyeball it. And don't worry if you add too much, you can always let it cook down. So now I don't have to worry so much about it getting stuck to the pan. Okay. We're just going to let that cook for a bit. It could take about 7 to 10 minutes for the potatoes, and you can tell it'll be ready when the potatoes are tender, and you can kind of cut them open with the spoon. So while that's cooking, I'm going to cut up the kale. Again, this is curly kale. And this takes the least amount of time to cook, which is why we're going to put it in last. I'm so used to cooking at home where I have a dog, and he loves kale stems, so I was saving them for him, but he's not here. So again, just chop it up. You could rip off the leaves too. A lot of people like to do that instead of chopping. So it's up to you. And again, you could use any green at this point. Spinach, whatever you have available. Spinach, collard greens. And so far, this dish is entirely vegan, and we haven't added salt. Salt is optional. You can add that at the end. I like to save that for last and let people decide how much salt they want to put on it. So we have the kale ready. Keep stirring the veggies. If you're in a hurry or if you want this to cook faster, you can always put a lid on it. That helps. It has a really nice yellow color because of the turmeric. The rice is still going. Nice break in your meal prep where you can start putting stuff away that you're done using. A little secret, if you accidentally put too much red chili or it gets too spicy, if you just squeeze a lemon, that'll cut that heat. So I've made that mistake before for people who don't like spicy food. So you can always put some lemon juice too, and that'll help cut that chili taste. So this is one of my favorite dishes to prepare, especially if you're short on time or you need to use up ingredients in your kitchen or your fridge. Because it's so flexible in terms of what you're using, as long as you have that base of the onions, the mustard seeds, the cumin seeds that are fresh, you can kind of adjust as you wish. So, I'm a farmer and I love to grow okra. So I definitely sub okra in here instead of the cabbage when I have it. So it'll be a potato, okra, and greens dish. So you can be really kind of versatile and mix it up so you're not, you don't get bored of the same veggies all the time. It's starting to kind of cook down. I can smell the spices through my mask, so that's always a good sign. What I like about this dish is it's kind of timed perfectly with the rice. By the time the rice is done cooking, this is usually done cooking by then as well. Just gonna test the potatoes. They're starting to soften. What I'm gonna do now is add the kale. I'm gonna just let it all cook together here. So with the greens, you can just let them wilt on the top at first and then stir them in after. You can see I just put a layer of the kale over the potatoes and the cabbage and just let it wilt. Kale's going to take a little bit longer than something like spinach would, so spinach is a really quick green to cook down. I'm going to start stirring it into the dish. So, just serve up a little plate here. And then I have this yogurt here. It's just a non-fat plain Greek yogurt, so it could just be any kind of plain yogurt. And I'm going to just put a little dollop of yogurt, and I still have some cumin powder left. Put that on top. Voila!
Thank you, Anita, for the awesome recipe. It was so delicious. If you like this recipe, please let us know. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and join us next week for a tofu scramble by Chef Rosa Zamora of Farm and Table. Thank you. Thank you for watching. Tune in for the next fun and healthy recipe from Cooking for Health.